Back again to one of our lunchtime live events. This time around, we're talking about Black History Month, and our session is focused on actions and not words. So the theme for this year is, as mentioned, actions and not words, because it's all about making sure that we're not just performing allyship, and we're actually putting words into actions to make sure things can change. And it's really important that within the profession, within pharmacy, as we are very diverse, that we are taking those actions and to make things different and to make things positive and change for the future and make those positive, long-lasting changes. So we want to make sure that there's racial equality across the profession, and we also want to celebrate the continued achievements and contributions that Black pharmacists and Black pharmacy team members make within the profession as well. And that also includes having those difficult conversations to continue to tackle racism and being able to be allies in this space as well. And not just for this month, but all year round. We want to be able to do this all the time. And then I just also wanted to highlight the fact that it isn't just for Black people to sort this out. You know, the burden can't rely on people who are experiencing the racism and discrimination to then also be able to fix it. We want to make sure that we're creating a space where allies feel comfortable in raising concerns and highlighting discrimination, but also putting things into place to prevent it from happening in the beginning. So today's panel session is very much focused on what people have done in their workplaces to enable that to happen, but also reflecting on the impact that's had on the Black pharmacist community and pharmacy teams and what more we need to be doing. And also hopefully we'll be able to draw out some tips and for people to be able to put this into practice if they're a bit worried about how to start in the workplace. We also want to make sure we've got role models. So we've got a whole panel of amazing professionals here who are role models for us and who are doing the right thing in the profession. So I'd just like to welcome our panel members. So I'll start with Abimola Asugla, who is the a clinical pharmacist team leader, medicines governance at Bradford University Hospitals. We've got Simon Harris, who is the head of education at Greenlight Pharmacy. We've got Sharifat Mohammed Kamal, who is a HIV specialist pharmacist and is also representing the UK Black Pharmacist Association. And then we've got Layla Neshat Mokadeen, who's a senior lecturer and race inequality champion at Robert Gordon University. So welcome everybody, and a huge thank you to having this channel to chat with me today about this really important topic. So I'd just like to start off by asking each of the panel members to tell us a little bit about yourselves and the roles that you're currently taking and what's made you passionate about being in this space and inclusion and diversity. So Abimola, if I can come to you first.
Yes, thank you, Aman, and welcome to everyone here. My name is Abimbola Olusoga. I've been a practicing pharmacist for over 24 years. My current role, as Aman introduced me, is that I'm the clinical pharmacist team leader for medicines governance at the Bradford Teaching Hospitals. I'm also the Trust Medication Safety Officer. I am passionate about people. My area of interest span from patient safety, improvement, science, behavior change, antimicrobial stewardship, education and training. I am passionate about improving patients' experience and supporting the development of healthcare professionals, especially junior colleagues within my organization. I am passionate about getting people to understand that they can, in their journeys, they can do something about it. Now, there are challenges out there, but I'm always one to say that you have something that you can bring to the table, and you just need to be able to sell yourself. And I think that's why we're here today to, have those conversations about what we're doing in our respective organizations.
Brilliant. Thank you, Abimola. And Simon?
Thanks, everyone. Lovely to be here. So my role as head of education has different elements to it. The most recent part is I work now as a leadership coach for the senior leaders across our organization. And as part of that, I run leadership workshops for groups of pharmacists and pharmacy technicians at Greenlight. Another part of my role is to lead in our foundation training programs. We've got 22 trainees on a range of different multi-sector programs. I'm also the mental health first aider at Greenlight, a role which I take very seriously and is a big big part of what we do at Greenlight in terms of supporting our co-owners. And I also, of course, chair our inclusion and our wellbeing group, which meets 3 or 4 times a year. So thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Layla?
Thanks, Aman. Lovely to be here with everyone. So my background started as a specialist medicines management pharmacist in the hospital, and I started my EDI work in the hospital working with the chaplaincy. So I was the surgical pharmacist, so we used to work at things like looking at Jehovah's Witness patients, looking at care pathways for surgery, and that kind of thing. So I've always had that interest in EDI. I think being from a mixed heritage background myself, so a bit of an East meets West child, I think I kind of have an appreciation and insight into some of the challenges, but also the facilitators and equity measures that we can put in place, for example, for our undergrad students being from an academic perspective at the moment. So my role as the equality champion within the university was born out of my desire to really have a platform that I could use that could have some kind of impact. So I think the Black History Month this month obviously is looking at actions. I think that really resonated with me. So I very much went out of my comfort zone to take up that role. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago, literally, they created a new role in our School of Pharmacy and Life Sciences as an EDI coordinator. So I've just taken up that role as well. In terms of my academic role, I'm a postgrad course leader as well. So I try to bring in health inequalities and looking at minority groups and public health as well. So trying to tie in the academic side with my pastoral side as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Layla. And Sharifa? Sharifa, can you hear me? Oh, you're back. Brilliant.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fat Muhammad Kamal. I'm an overseas pharmacist, spanned back to about 26 years for now. And my passion is in pharmacist public and at the same time, very good interest in career for funding careers for pharmacists, Black pharmacists as such. And currently, I work with the PDA as the vice president for the PDA Black BIM committee. It's lovely to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sharifa. It's really lovely to hear everyone is so passionate about inclusion and diversity, and we're all coming at it from different angles, but ultimately, Abimola, I think you kind of summed it up really nicely about being passionate about people and patients, and this all ties it in together. So thank you very much for joining today and for sharing. So I'm going to kick off with Layla and Simon, both within your respective workplaces. What have you done that has implemented racial equality and improved it since, I suppose, the last 2 years since we've been talking about it as a profession? So Layla, I'll come to you first.
Thanks, Aman. I guess my kind of journey around EDI implementation in the curriculum started back in 2010 when I started to decolonize the curriculum. I prefer to use the term inclusive curricula or diversifying the curricula. I'm not a big fan of decolonization in terms of a word, because I think it comes from a negative stance. So being really positive, I wanted to bring lots of kind of richness and diversity to the approach that we had in pharmacy practice for our student pharmacists coming in. And so then I've really been able to use the last 2 years and that momentum that's been gathered around this space to say to my colleagues, look, we really need to be doing more in terms of the curriculum, but in terms of the processes and in terms of the support. So looking at it from 3 different angles and bringing that together under the heading of well-being, because I think if you can get that well-being and that sense of belonging sorted out from the beginning when they join the profession as stage 1 pharmacy students all the way through, I'm hoping that that will help us reduce things like the awarding gaps and things like that. So in terms of my role as at the university level, I am fortunate to be able to have formed an action group. So within that action group, we've got staff from across the school, but also from other schools. And I found that really, really useful, because you've got people from engineering, from business, from different groups and schools, and you can really learn from each other, because I think we're all facing similar kind of inclusion and diversity issues. So within the action group, it's great because even tiny little actions that we set ourselves, we've noticed has a massive impact on the students. And I think having that partnership with colleagues is great. But the other thing that I've done is I've set up a student EDI partnership program, and that's getting students from undergrad, from postgrad, and the alumni. So that's pharmacists that are out in practice, and all of us kind of sitting together and picking everything apart And it's been great because it's meant that we've then developed a new framework called Global Citizenship Framework. And it's just a way of bringing together all the EDI issues, so not just race, ethnicity, but faith and belief, LGBTQ+, etc. All of the characteristics. That's our ambition anyway. At the moment, my focus is on kind of race and ethnicity and faith and belief. But what we've managed to do is we are hoping to develop our students as global citizens. So we're looking at health inequalities, we're looking at local issues, which I think is really important, but then looking at more global issues as well. So that's some of the things that we're doing in terms of the content and the curricula. But I was really, really keen to look at any processes that we've got that might not be as inclusive. So as an undergrad myself, I noticed there were certain aspects that weren't as inclusive as they could be. I then had what we call now microaggressions, but I think all of us will probably agree that, you know, back then when we were young and undergrads, we didn't have the terminology, whereas young people now, it's great, we've got that terminology to share and have these discussions. So for example, if I just give you a really tiny example, we noticed that our student partners said that the process of electing our student reps for the course year group wasn't as inclusive as it could be because people were self-selecting and then they were having visible votes. And so minority groups, perhaps our Black students, minority ethnic students, didn't feel, not that they didn't feel confident, but they were a little bit anxious that they wouldn't get as many votes perhaps as their majority counterparts. So the student partners said to us, why don't we just make this an anonymized process? So that's what we've done. We get them to submit a statement, why they would make a good leader, why they would be good in this role, and then we've selected them. And I think that's getting your grassroots level, you know, representation of leadership, and then we're hoping to carry that through all the way. That's just a small example of what we've done. But in terms of Black History Month, I've been heavily involved and I've tried to encourage my colleagues in my school, and they've been fabulous and they've all come on board. I think once you have something around celebration, it's a great way of getting everyone enthused and to learn whilst you're having fun as well. Yeah, so that's a little bit from me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Layla. And I think it's going to be really good to see the impact it has on the students, you know, when they're in practice, and then seeing those things from an early career stage. They'll know to make things anonymous, for example, and it'll be obvious to them when they go into practice. So I think that's really good. Simon, how about yourself?
Well, when Greenlight was founded back in 1999, really two of the main principles were all about equality and inclusion. And so one of those aspects is about recruiting staff from the local areas, so meaning they speak the local languages, they have a great understanding and a great awareness of the needs of the local communities that we serve. The other part to that is that we're employee owned, meaning all those who work in the organisation benefit financially from our growth. So what does that mean practically? Practically, that means we've been able to support families, for example, buying their first house, their first car, sending their kids to university for the first time. So there's lots of real high-hitting impact stuff that we're able to do by being an organisation which is full of co-owners. More recently, so the Greenlight Wellbeing Group is what it used to be called, began towards the end of 2019, actually, so even before COVID, as a way of encouraging a healthier lifestyle for all those that work at Greenlight. And we started it by creating a wellbeing week. So we thought if we could have a week where everyone in the organisation can come together, focusing on our health inside work, but also outside of work. And so we got going on our local WhatsApp groups to try and share some ideas and suggestions for physical well-being, mental well-being. But really important to me was that it wasn't, I had a sort of sense of it's not okay you have to use our time outside of work to recover so that we can just get back to work and then get exhausted and then go out and recover. So I thought, what can we do in work to make sure that we're maintaining our energy levels? I mean, the truth is in community pharmacy, it's a tough job. It's a lot of standing. It's very physical, long hours, and it is hard, but we wanted to sort of share some ideas and suggestions of ways of working together and supporting each other. And always with these things, there's the things that people tell us that they did as part of that week, but then gradually as the weeks go by, people would say, oh yeah, I remember you did that week, and you really inspired me to eat healthily that evening and to call up a family member. And that was really lovely to hear some of those comments even after the week had happened. And then in 2021, we changed the group to include a focus on inclusion. And that started with Black History Month. That was last year. And so during the month, we invited all our Black co-owners to write about themselves and their role at Greenlight and their achievements, which we would then celebrate with them. And we shared them through the various internal communication systems that we have here. This year, similarly, we've invited our Black co-owners to speak at our training events and different events that are happening this month. Again, share their background, share their experience, and celebrate their contributions. In addition to Black History Month, we regularly share information on religious festivals and celebrations across the group. I mean, I suppose that it's very simple things, really. So even in our WhatsApp group, we're sharing who's celebrating what this month. And as the years go by, we get to see the cycle of events coming and going, and we can start to understand more and more about what our colleagues are doing. Yeah, I'll leave that there for now.
Brilliant, thank you, Simon. And I think it is about the doing, and actually once you start it's easy to keep that momentum going. Abimola, like just hearing about the allyship that's happening in other organisations, what's your reflections on that? And are you getting involved, within your own organisation because obviously the burden doesn't lie on you to make the change, but I suppose it's enabling with that lived experience.
Yeah. It's brilliant to hear what Layla and Simon have just shared, and it's testament to the fact that this is now in the limelight. A lot of people are getting involved and engaged, and in my organization, I've noticed one of the things that I noticed is that on any interview panel, there has to be a BAME representation on the interview panel, because that should reflect the population that we have, our workforce. And that's been quite useful to see that that's something that they have, ensure that we are, trying to adhere to. And also earlier on in the year, I think back in March, we celebrated International Women's Day, and the organization pulled together a group of women within our trust, to talk about their experiences. And I was part of the panel, and that was quite enlightening to see that, there are other people within our organization from different backgrounds, and they could see that, they're people that will be able to share their story, share where they've been, where they've come from, the challenges that they've had, the support that they've had, who's inspired them. So that was also something that was quite key, that I was involved in, and I could see that I was also trying to get people to start thinking that, look, we're in our diversity, we're all supposed to be working as one, we're all supposed to be inclusive in the things that we do. Another thing that I think, has been done recently, earlier on in the year, is to try and refresh the Trust Race and Equality Network within the organization. So we know that there's a national ambition and trying to get more people within the workplace, to think about their personal and professional growth. So we know these networks are there, but if you don't know what is happening and what they're doing, you won't be involved. So it was the opportunity to relaunch those networks, to get people to know that this is your network, it's not just, the chair or the vice chair. This is our network, we need to be involved with it. So I think that there is traction, along the way, with what Layla and Simon have shared, and I've seen some of those coming through within my organization.
Brilliant, thank you, Abimola. Sharifa, how about yourself? Any reflections on what you've heard from Layla and Simon, and also locally or nationally, what have you been getting involved with?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Sharifa, I can hear you. So
yes,
yeah, I can hear
you. What I've been doing over the last couple of years, and because I came in as an overseas pharmacist with personal interest, as I said, overseas pharmacy, and it's so interesting that coming into UK as a Black pharmacy or an overseas pharmacy is challenging enough they need someone to mentor in terms of the pre-registration examination, passing the examination, looking for pre-rest places, as well as passing the exam itself. So we run evening classes. During COVID, it was like online classes, which really supported most of the overseas pharmacies to write their exams and even support the peers that are ready. The interesting thing is the fact that when we have problem with the pass rate between the Black pharmacists or colored pharmacists, it was an interesting aspect that I have to work through individual support platform at PS, PDA that provides support for pharmacists to allow all overseas pharmacists to work together to get to pass their exams. Then looking at the work challenges, diversity in work challenges that are faced by overseas pharmacists, sometimes with the integration, sometimes with the communication skills, sometimes with the cultural factors. We work together with other organizations, be Black Pharmacists Association, Royal Pharmaceutical Society, PDA, to support this particular sector of pharmacies to achieve in whatever career they wanted to go into. Sometimes when pharmacies, maybe Black pharmacists, it's always a challenging factors due to sometimes it might be interview factors. They might not know how to make. Write the CVs, compose the CV, personal statements, all of those things are challenging issues posed to overseas pharmacists. So we run a lot of different platforms in different organizations to support this particular set of people that need this particular support. The CV writing scheme, sometimes we have to look for an HR person to come and support. And there's a lot of mentoring platform, even with the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, to support the mentoring scheme, to support the interview skills. Sometimes the overseas pharmacists are always slow. As interviewer might not actually understand what they're trying to express themselves at. So those platforms run different skills, different sectors, different ways to support this particular group of Black pharmacists. So it's a whole length of projects that it depends on one case-by-case basis. They will ever need that particular to signpost them to different areas. And because I work mostly as a locum pharmacist, and it's emphasized this, that pharmacists that work as locums and they're Black, so I would say maybe they're overseas or BAME group. There's a lot of challenges in getting the right placement. And a couple of years back, it's quite easy now because we have to provide platforms for locums where we can ask questions, where we can throw out questions so that we can do it like a peer review thing within ourselves. So all of this supports new pharmacists, overseas pharmacists, Black pharmacists coming into UK so that we'll be able to bring out our own personal potentials, and people and the whole pharmacy can understand what we have within us and what we are able to give to the community and our patients as well. So, that's where we are now. And I hope, as it's going now, it's easier as we're here. It's easier for us to come together, work together, and see those lapses so that the future pharmacists coming with this particular sector of groups, we find area to support themselves.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Sharifa. And it's so important to take that holistic, whole person approach of, how do we support people at each stage in different experiences to be able to be the best that they can be. And, you mentioned overseas pharmacists, and I was talking to a group of Black pharmacy students, and they raised a really important point about colloquial terms that are used in examinations or OSCEs that completely throw them. And it's got nothing to do with their capability, but they spend so long trying to figure out what that word means. For example, bookies, that's the example that they shared, and that's a betting shop. But if you've not heard of that, you can spend a lot of time worrying about what and then completely get distracted about the purpose of the OSCE. So I think it's so important to take that whole system approach almost to the person and go, right, at each stage. So that's brilliant. Thank you, Sharifa. Back to Simon and Layla now. With the work that you've been doing, and it's been incredible, what challenges and enablers have you experienced in undertaking those initiatives, and what needs to be done in that area? So Simon, I'll come to you first.
Thanks. So in terms of challenges first, ultimately, as a community pharmacy group, as well as general practice teams, our teams are all incredibly busy, hardworking frontline staff. And so these initiatives, well, they're all very supportive of them in theory. It's just about time and energy to come along to meetings, which can't really be during the day because these people just can't attend those meetings during the working days. They have to be evenings or weekends. And we do get a lot of people coming along to them and giving their time and energy to them. But it's not ideal really to ask people to come out of work and then come along to another meeting. So that's one of the challenges, is how do we get people together? How do we get opinions? Another thing is that sometimes people are reluctant to share their personal stories in larger groups. And then if we sort of say, what I'm keen in our group is that it's, I chair it, and I can't do everything. I don't experience. I need people to support me in it. And what's moving from that to the enablers are, even if you just find a few people who are really passionate about the topic and get them to work together to drive some of our initiatives, that's been a real enabler. And one of the other things is that I've been doing is trying to learn more about my colleagues' interests outside of work. And by doing that, I've discovered, for example, one colleague, she writes books. She's on her second book, all about mental health. I had no idea that she actually goes into the city in London and talks in large organizations about mental health. So what is that I did? It was only by having a conversation about well-being that we discovered that. And I think really the kind of a takeaway or a tip for me would be, small steps lead to big change. So don't give up, even if it's a very small step. Every so often, it's not that that's not worth it, it's that these small steps are cumulative and they're taking us in a direction. And I think that's the important thing for me to focus on.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Simon. I think that's really important as well. And I think just having someone be the leader in this space, facilitating that conversation, is so important. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have all the answers, but just having someone ask the question is so important as having the answers as well. So I think that's really, really important. Thank you. Layla?
I think I would echo everything that Simon has said. I was like nodding away at everything that you were saying, Simon, about the small steps and about getting your allies. And I think, yes, so in terms of challenges, I guess one of my challenges was that although students or pharmacists that are already qualified and are doing the postgrad courses, although they were coming to me anecdotally with kind of struggles that they're having, I needed to have the data to be able to say, right, this is what the data says. This is the massive change we're going to make to the whole structure of the course, and then look at evaluating that. So, for example, my postgrad students, a lot of them have caring responsibilities. You know, they've got young kids, they've got babies, etc., and they're trying to study at the same time and work. So I gathered that data, captured that data from them, any protected characteristics they wanted to share. And the fact that then I had that data available, I could then go and change the whole structure of the course. So we looked at the timetable. Let's not start at 9 o'clock, let's start at 10 o'clock, all of our classes. If they want to go and do their research in their own area of practice, or if we've got international students, for example, they want to go back to Nigeria or Middle East, etc., they've got that option. So it's all about flexibility and looking at what kind of enablers I can put in place and my team can help me to put in place that will then impact on the students. And then I could take the feedback that they had, which was absolutely wonderful. So they said, you know, they were reunited with their families when they went back home and did their research. So their families could look after the children, which meant that they got their MSCs at the end on their first sitting. They didn't need extensions, anything like that, which was lovely, because then I could take that back to the course team and say, this is something really that we can continue for the next cohorts. Another challenge I guess I've had, similar to Simon was saying, making sure you've got enough people that are enthused, are passionate, and really want to drive this forward with you. It's so important. And like you said, Simon, even if it's one person, you know, the two of you are going to be a really strong force. So I think partnership's really important. And so whilst we've got our students, for example, acting as EDI student partners, I wanted to bring in the alumni as well, so they've got that practice experience that they bring in. And then also think about the wider picture, not just limiting it to pharmacy, but having partners from other kind of healthcare professionals, so whether it's the medical field, nursing field, and the student union, for example. Myself being in a university, I get the student union presidents who are from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds to come in and just inspire the students, and they can see them in a leadership position and that representation, and you know that helps our students as well to feel empowered. So yeah, I think it's about changing, like Simon was saying, changing that challenge that you've had into something that then becomes a lovely enabler. Thanks,
Yeah,
Aman.
brilliant. Thank you, Layla. It's so important to have those role models, isn't it? and the direction has to come from a senior perspective to drive it. So I think that's really important. Thank you. Sharifa, from your perspective, like reflections over the last couple of years, and I suppose your thoughts on the barriers and enablers that we've got in the profession to make things better.
I can hear you. Can you?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I can't really hear you.
Oh, Sharifa, can you hear me? Did you hear my question? It was about reflections.
I can hear you anymore.
Yeah, brilliant. And so, Sharifa, what are your reflections on the last few years, and what barriers and enablers have you experienced in making change? Sharifa, sorry, can you hear me? Sharifa, can you hear me? Abimola, did you want to take the question, and I'll chat with Sharifa just to make sure she's okay?
Yes, that's fine. So I think in the last couple of years, I think my reflection, we've had little change. It feels like there are pockets of places that are, that are very proactive, and they're, going out there and ensuring that there is that is on their agenda. But when you look at it, when we look at the country, when we look at our sector, there's been little change. And I think it's something about our leadership teams, being prioritizing the fact that we need to improve, equality, inclusivity, diversity. We've had the listening events. We've had, different forums that have been put together to hear us talk about our lived experiences, about, where we're at now and what we've gone through. And like Simon said, that sometimes it's challenging for people to open up as well, because you don't think that you're in a safe space. And we want our leadership teams, to be able to tell us that, this is a safe space. Nothing is going to come back, to haunt you, in the sense that you're actually sharing the things that you've experienced. I was able to do that earlier on in the year because I was given that opportunity. But it was also from a point where I felt there are other people out there that would benefit from me sharing my story. So like Layla and Simon have said, we have to be proactive in taking that stand as well and sharing our story and not being quiet. Because if we're quiet, people don't know what we've experienced. People don't know that, these things are happening, or that is how it's perceived. How Sharif has mentioned about, being in a different, you have people that would have the culture shock, and because they're in a different environment and they're not familiar with the things that we have here. And it's having that opportunity to have those conversations, to have to be open, to ask the questions. Yesterday we were celebrating Mental Health Day, weren't we? It's all about that. When you think about it as individuals, what is it that you bring to the organization or the department that you work in? And making people realize that they're important as well, that it's something that would benefit the team, that they're not different. The fact that we look different, we talk different, does not mean that, we don't have things to bring to the table. And I was reflecting as well before today that sometimes you feel down that it's taken a while for us to get to where we're at now. It's good that we're making a bit of progress, but it's taking so long. So we need our leadership teams, especially because I think that they have, and I think, Simon, Layla, they're already doing that in their respective organizations or their roles. We need them to be more proactive with supporting the development of colleagues, with providing the opportunities that are available to promote, individuals. We need them to live up to being inclusive and authentic, leaders, we need them to be able to show, not just say it, that their actions really reflect that they're fair, that they respect us, that they promote psychological safety in the aspects where we're all sat around the table, be able to point out that individual that surely they have something to say, and listen to them, listening to other people's perspective. Sherifat was talking about, coming, from a different background and being here, that we do have something to offer. But if people don't appreciate that, it's always going to be, well, maybe you don't understand what you're supposed to be doing. So it feels like there's more of that needs to happen. We need people to be more self-aware, demonstrate that through their actions, they practice what they preach. And like I've rightly said in my organization, being able to see that, someone who is new to the organization, they're able to approach you and say, well, we want you to come and share your experience. I've only been in this role 13 months, but I can already see that in my current organization, there's some work going on. But we need it to be across board. We need more of our leadership teams to show that they are interested in not just what they've said, but actually they're doing something about it. And I think one area that I'll end with is when you think about the leadership teams in different organizations, do they reflect your population, your workforce? I think that's also a starting point when you think about it. Do people that are in your respective department, organization, do they see it as something to aspire to? Do they see that they can also have a seat at the table? It's one of the things that we also need to be proactive about. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Abibola. I think the safe space piece is so important to have those conversations and knowing that those actions are fair. So having that inclusive approach and knowing that you're going to get a fair chance at offering your view or being considered for a role is really important, and not enough is being done, and that's why we're still having these conversations. Sharifa, hopefully you can hear me now and we've got you back. So just your reflections on what's been happening over the last couple of years and what we need to be doing more of. Oh, you're on mute, Sharifa.
I think there's been positive.
You're on mute again, Sharifa. Sorry. Let's try again. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me? I can hear you, but there's an echo, Sharifa.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, this is okay. Yeah. I think there's been a good trend, and there's been progress from what we are over the last couple of years, because there's been a lot of interactions, there's been a lot of more communications, there's a lot of portfolios supporting Black pharmacies and BEM pharmacies, and there's been a lot of opportunities, just as Abimbola has said. You, unlike before, to apply to be part of a leadership team within the organization is a bit scary. But now, I mean, this confidence that, okay, at least you can apply, even if you don't get what you want, and you feel part of the team, you feel that you are being accepted, and you feel that you belong somewhere, that someone really recognizes your contribution to the profession. So that progression, that positive trend, but it's more things that needs to be done is to create these more opportunities so that the next generation of colored pharmacists knows that they are being accepted and they can actually put in a lot of their potential into the profession. We have a lot of diversity coming into pharmacy, the independent prescribers, GP pharmacists, hospital pharmacists, community pharmacists. There's a lot of things happening within the pharmacy profession that even the online version, people from different areas, internationally, nationally, they want to be part, come together. So until we're able to put that in place, that, oh, everybody can see that, oh, this person is from Nigeria, this one is from India, this one is from Pakistan. We have this understanding of each individual ethnicity to be able to say, okay, she's in England, we can understand what she wanted to do and we can support her. And new pharmacists that are coming overseas knows where to go when they need help. Are happy to be here. They want to perform and they want to be able to say, okay, I'm an overseas pharmacist, I'm here now, I know what to do and I know who to go to when I need help. So it's just very good to open up that leadership profile so that the colors, different colors can be seen. People can feel that they also can contribute to the development of pharmacy profession. So I think that is where I really think to add on to what we've been saying so far.
Brilliant. No, thank you, Sharifa. It is about opening that door wide, and that's essentially the principle I always work with the work that we're doing at the RPS, is about making sure the door is wide open for everybody to come in and everyone is accepted. So I think that's a really good point. Just really conscious of time and the fact that we've had a really good conversation, but just to end the session, it would be good to hear if you've got any more additional tips for anyone listening, of how, if anyone's thinking, how do they get started, but they're not sure what to do, how do they take that journey? So Abimael, I'll come with you and I'll go around the panel. So any top tip about how people can get started with this piece of work?
So the top tip, and this is from personal experience, is find out who can, find mentors, talk to people in your department. Don't be afraid. There's someone there that would be able to listen to you. And if you don't find anyone in your department, go outside your department. I think it's time, we have the different networks within different organizations as well. There will be someone, they don't have to be within your profession. I think it's worthwhile us looking at ourselves as, yes, we're pharmacists, but we have a lot to offer, across board. So mentorship, if it's a coach as well, there are resources available. Aman has talked about the RPS. There are things out there that have been put in place to support us. So let's take advantage of those things.
Brilliant. Thank you, Abimael. Simon?
Yes, so I think it's one conversation at a time, really. For me, it's about setting the bar low, really, to start with. One conversation at a time, see who's interested, and see what you can learn about people. And momentum will build over time. Don't expect to set something up grand up overnight. It won't happen. And these things take time, and it's a change ultimately, and it will take time. But one conversation at a time, one small step at a time. And this time next year, if people do that, then this time next year, people will have something to come on here and talk about.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Layla?
Thanks, Aman. I guess mine would be similar to what Abimael and Sharifat was saying in terms of put yourself forward. If the leadership position comes up, don't be scared. I know it's scary, it is, but just go for it. At the end of the day, you might get something out of it, or you might get exactly what you wanted out of it. So just put yourself out of that comfort zone. I think go with the momentum at the moment that everybody wants within their organizations to be inclusive, and use that to your advantage to actually be in a position where you can then perhaps act as a mentor for other people coming through. So for example, Sharifat, picking up on what you were saying about international students, for our international students, I felt that there was a gap there in terms of mentoring. So I've got lovely colleagues in Nigeria and Kuwait that then mentor my students that are in the UK that have just come over. So it's about thinking about those little changes that you can make, and don't ever think they're too little, like you were saying, Simon, because every little thing will make a big difference. So it's just empowering yourself to then empower people. I know that's really easy for me to say, but honestly, it's doable. And I think having been quite scared to start on this journey, I think once you get that momentum going and people can see the impact that you've had, then you can grow your sphere of influence and impact.
Brilliant. Thank you, Layla. And Sharifa?
I would say lastly that we shouldn't be shy, and we should take up opportunities. I remember when I first got into the Black Pharmacists Association, I used to be very shy and so backward. But Elsie will always say, oh, you can do it. So we should give people, support people, give them opportunities. Then they'll feel, then everything they want to do, we come in and coming. So we should give people opportunity and encourage them, give them that confidence in themselves that they can do this, they can do that, and along the line they can build on themselves and what they can do. So I think it's about all of those little things that each one of us can do to support each other, to be able to achieve what we wanted to achieve for our patients, our community, and for the pharmacy profession as well. I think that's what I would like to finish with.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys, and thank you for your tips. I think they're a really good way to finish, and and it's just nice to have this conversation. And for some people, this conversation is in itself so important. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon to have this conversation. So just wanted to just share a little bit more about what else is coming up for Black History Month at the RPS. So we are holding another panel session on the 26th of October with our Black Pharmacy board members, Lola, Tasse and Bio, who will be talking about representation and leadership, very much following on this conversation about putting yourself out of the comfort zone and going for those roles and putting yourselves out there. And we've also really want to enhance on that and celebrate the diversity within Black pharmacy communities. And we're going to be sharing profiles of different individuals and about their heritage or anything. And so if there is anything like that you want to share, please do get in touch and we can share your profile. So again, a final thank you for the panel this afternoon. It's been a really interesting listen, and I always learn a lot from people's experiences and actions. So thank you very much and have a good evening, and well, not evening, afternoon, and thank you very much for listening. Take care.